Hello, everyone. Welcome to the U.S. Center. This event is Prepare, Call to Action. And now, let's welcome to the podium Aparna Srivastava, Deputy Chief Climate Officer at the U.S. International Development Finance Corporation. Let's give her a warm welcome. Hi, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome again to the U.S. Center. Welcome to the Prepare Call to Action here at COP28. We are thrilled you all are here, and I was so thrilled to see the line out the door around the corner. This is exactly the enthusiasm we need for adaptation finance. So, yay, go all of us. Thank you. So, PREPARE, as you all might know, stands for the President's Emergency Plan on Adaptation and Resilience. It was announced in 2021, and the action plan was launched last year. It centers 3 pillars, including climate knowledge, plans and programs, and the third, mobilizing resources. And so that third pillar, taking that last year at COP27, we launched the Prepare Call to Action for the private sector. And at this event, we will be hearing the tremendous progress and celebrating just the fantastic work that's already underway. Now, I realize I forgot to introduce myself, where I'm coming from. So I'm Aparna Srivastava. I'm the Deputy Chief Climate Officer of the DFC, as you heard. DFC, as you might know, you can think of us as the U.S. government's development bank. We are mandated to partner with the private sector to address the most pressing development challenges facing the world. And climate is a huge priority for our agency. We are super proud to be sharing here at COP28 that we have committed $3.7 billion across nearly every sector of the economy in climate finance. And as a key implementing agency of PREPARE, we are thrilled to be here and thrilled to hear more about what's to come at the event today. So I'll turn it over to the event now. I am humbled and honored and have the distinct pleasure to provide opening remarks, the Special Presidential Envoy for Climate, Secretary John Kerry. Please, over to you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much, Aparna. I hate to say this to you, but you may be thrilled to see them lined up going around the block. Samantha and I would be thrilled if they were in here. We had a big enough room. Anyway, small lamentations from a public official. So I really want to thank Samantha Power for being here. She is everywhere. She just was in the Holy Land yesterday looking at Gaza and what's happening, and she's always fearless in going into the places of crisis and trying to undo them, and I can't think of a better partner. And she said to me as I got up, "I love you." I said, "I love her. She is fabulous." Please. Yeah. And another friend from the administration, Ali Zaidi, is finishing up somewhere else on this roulette wheel we get on going around here. But he'll be over here towards the end to provide some closing comments. So we're here to talk, obviously, about adaptation and resilience and really meeting the future squarely where it is. And everybody has now kind of come to the conclusion, yeah, we got to do adaptation. I think there's a there's a lot of things that are happening at this COP, by the way. And I think there's an incredible new energy. I see it among the businesses here. I see it among the NGOs here. Everybody's feeling, okay, crunch time. And by God, in the first week of the COP, this marks the end of the first week, we've managed to pass one of the most contentious issues that we spent the entire summer negotiating on, working, massaging, and we got it in a place where it de-conflicted it as a really contentious issue, and everybody joined together on the first day. First time in history, a COP has passed something on the first day, and something as big as that. So now we have this fund for climate impact response, and already money in it to help stand up, and I think that's a big step. So there are a lot more things. I'm not going to run through them now. But I will share with you this. I was one of those folks who sort of, at first, and this is years ago, wondered, adaptation, how are we going to do that? We got to get money from Congress and do this and that. But today, we're here to change the paradigm. And the reality is, I mean, we thought adaptation is so hard. Oh my God, it's not a profit-making enterprise. How the hell are you going to deploy private sector money that wants to make money to this sector? Well, the folks you're going to hear from today, the businesses that are here, have courageously stepped up and frankly, intelligently and practically, with practicality, stepped up to say, whoa, you guys are missing the boat, all of you folks who think this is somehow a separate category which can't be profitable. So what we're going to try to do now is point out that businesses all around the world have to face the new reality. They too have to adapt. They have to begin to say, how are we going to sell our wares? How are we going to have a strategy that's going to deal with this country if this country is so hot you can't work, or doesn't have water, or has frequent hurricane, whatever. We have to all think about adaptation in our heads and in our lives. And so the private sector is now actually leading the way out of this, creating new solutions for what we need to do to adapt to the changing climate. And a company in Arizona, Source Global, has developed, for instance, new hydro panels. It's a new hydro panel technology that takes sunlight, turns it into drinking water. And we're funding the deployment now of 80 of these innovative panels that were to remote communities in Papua New Guinea, and they will create local source drinking water, which will preclude having to ship in bottles of water, and particularly plastic bottles. So I'm really pleased to see the company leaders that are here today. We need you more than ever, and it is clear that focusing your collective expertise and resources and partnerships on this critical issue is going to make a huge difference. Now, let me speak to that quickly. The Biden administration has stepped up. You heard that earlier. We are rapidly and dramatically providing increased support for adaptation through the President's emergency plan, the Prepare, which you're all aware of here. And the U.S. funding for adaptation reached $2.3 billion in 2022. We continue to work with Congress to try to scale it up, and we're working towards $3 billion per year by 2024. And to address this crisis, we need all hands on deck. And I want to give you the encouragement of what the Boston Consulting Group has taught us all with its recent report. Every dollar a company invests in implementing adaptation and resilience yields $2 to $15 in financial benefits from avoiding losses in revenue and cost savings. Number one. Number two, private financiers are investing in companies providing that adaptation solutions are there because they see the future ahead in which these adaptation services are going to be needed. So you've got a couple things happening here. You've got a clear understanding that if you shut your business down and you have a lot of losses because you didn't do what you need to do with adaptation, you take a hit. And you take a hit beyond just the damage to the building or damage to the supply chain. Then, in addition to that, you realize that it's possible to make money in the visionary building out of these adaptation processes and techniques, so that by getting ahead of the curve, you are in fact among the first people who are serving a newly created market. There's a need here. Demand. Demand creates markets. And there's now demand for this because a whole bunch of smart business people are looking down the road and saying, whoops, this is coming at us like a ton of bricks, and we got to get ahead of it. And as more and more businesses realize they are going to be able to do business or they can continue to make money, but they're going to have to take these steps, then a whole new enterprise has opened up whereby people can make money in building the buildings or putting in the new technologies or all these other components. And that puts people to work, and that helps build resilience and strength. So I commend the 16 companies who've come to the table now. The report that I just cited estimates that future revenues of these companies can be worth 9 or in some cases as high as 77 times their current revenues. That's the new market. So These 16 companies have come to the table now with about $2 billion of new commitments. And I want to thank you because you guys are really setting a trend here that's very important. I know in the panel you're going to go into greater detail, et cetera. Bottom line, adaptation by the private sector is going to help make the world a safer place, and we're very grateful to all of you for taking part in that. I think, is it my job to introduce? I already introduced her. The spectacular, incredible Samantha Power. She is the energized bunny of all things helping people around the world. Come on up here.
Thank you so much. This is not a book plug, but John Kerry wrote a book in the years in which we were not serving together in government. You might remember those years. His book is called Every Day is Extra, and it is a title that grows out of, I guess, the way that he and his buddies who survived the Vietnam War thought about life after that ordeal. And I don't know anybody who lives more that way than this individual, John Kerry. And I don't know anybody who will be able to look back on their time and their life and just say, I treated every day as if it was extra. And on climate, his life's calling, his life's mission, to have been Secretary of State, to leverage the relationships that he has built over a lifetime chairing the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and serving in the highest diplomatic role for the United States government, to leverage that for one ambition, which is to save our planet and to make sure that our planet remains a livable planet, to help communities adapt and to mitigate the damage from the excesses that have been committed up to this point. John, every day is extra. Every day that we get to watch you in action is a day that inspires us to work harder. So thank you. Thank you so much. I also want to thank Secretary Kerry's incredible team. Just wonderful to work with, especially Pallavi Sherikar, who has co-led this effort with Lindsay Doyle from USAID. So when we came together, Secretary and myself, Brian Deese, and we announced this call to action last year, I said a version of what the Secretary just said, which is that we hoped to create the same kind of energy for private sector adaptation commitments as we have seen belatedly for cutting emissions. A year out, I think it is fair to say we are well on our way. Over the past year, the 10 companies that responded to our Prepare call to action have made really important progress on their commitments. Microsoft, for example, opened its AI for Good lab in Kenya, where they are training African climate scientists. MasterCard has built a digital platform connecting millions of smallholder farmers to advisory services and credit to help them build more resilient farms. All told, the 10 initial companies are mobilizing more than $610 million and supporting more than 9 million people to adapt to the impacts of climate change. And it is proof of concept. That's really what we are looking to do, because we know 9.3 million people is a tiny share of the people who are now grappling with how to adapt to this changing climate. These companies have helped build the case for the world that investing in climate adaptation and resilience is not just good for the soul, it's good for business. It is good for business. And as Secretary Kerry mentioned, and we'll hear much more about, another Prepare partner from our initial launch is BCG, whose study, as part of its Prepare commitment, now allows companies to see that their peers' investments in building climate resilience into their own operations and their supply chains are paying off. It's not just climate advocates, it's business people who are now making this case. And again, we will hear more about companies netting anywhere from double to 15 times their adaptation investments in cost savings and avoided revenue losses. The possibilities for innovation in the private sector in the adaptation space are infinite, creating everything from seeds that can still grow in extended droughts to pavements that can absorb excess water to prevent flood and flood damage. Momentum is building, and I am thrilled to announce, before we hand it over to our panel, that in 1 year, we have tripled the number of companies and partners, bringing our total under the Prepare rubric to 31. The 21 new companies and partners are coming forward with voluntary commitments that will mobilize an estimated $2.3 billion in adaptation finance in developing countries. The work represented here now covers every area of adaptation that was in the original design of the call to action: water, insurance, food security, financial services, infrastructure, and health. One company joining the call to action, Jupiter Intelligence, is developing a product that can model how any location on Earth will likely be affected in the years from now until 2100 by 8 climate risks, from heat to flooding to drought, and quantifying the economic impact of those risks. That way, users can prepare for and adapt to the challenges that they'll face in the future and quantify the trade-offs between different kinds of investments. Jupiter's data is not only helping inform decisions in industries like agriculture, banking, and real estate, but also helping indigenous communities in South America decide how to develop their land to reduce risks. It's also helping local experts in Nepal design an early warning system for landslides that are likely to be caused by increasing floods. In response to the Prepare call to action, Jupiter is now expanding their work in 100 countries across Africa, Latin America, and the Asia Pacific to help get those most affected by climate change the information they need to help communities adapt. I'm looking forward to hearing more about efforts like these today, and here at USAID, we are eager to support your efforts, that is the private sector's efforts, in any way we can. The United States provided $2.3 billion in adaptation finance internationally in fiscal year 22, which gets us closer to President Biden's pledge to spend $3 billion a year by 2024 on climate adaptation. And we have heard loud and clear what you need from governments to accelerate your adaptation investments, and we are sprinting to make that available. Just this morning, in fact, I announced that the USAID-supported Green Guarantee Company, the first privately run company designed to guarantee green bonds and loans in developing countries, that the GGC will launch early next year. We are using every tool in our toolbox to help build this market fast, from catalytic grants to blended finance to technical support. So I invite you, I implore you in the private sector to engage with us and our missions on the ground. We have missions in more than 80 countries, programs in more than 100, to see how we can work together and help lower the barriers to entry for you and address some of the concerns you have about risk. For those of you who have not yet joined the call to action, I know it's just a matter of time. It's a question of whether you accrue the first mover advantage, so urge you to get in fast. Come on board and be part of this growing global movement for climate resilience. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Administrator Power and Secretary Carey. I'll now invite Karir Panani from the Boston Consulting Group to lead us through the panel. Yes. I will hand you the mic.
Thanks so much. Great. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity for all of us to be up here and to share our commitments. Thank you, Administrator Power, for your remarks and for citing our report. You did my work for me. So I'm Kahir Dhanani. I'm a Managing Director and Partner at Boston Consulting Group based in Washington, D.C., and I have the distinct pleasure of moderating this panel, which includes Dr. Alan Belfield, Global Chair of ARUP, Ms. Justina Nixon, Vice President and Chief Impact Officer at IBM, Liz Henderson, Global Head of Climate Risk at Aon, and Dr. Andrew Sear, President and CEO of the Bezos Earth Fund. We're also joined in the front row here by 6 additional business leaders from the Howden Group, Danone, Xylem, Tomorrow.io, Miyamoto, and Visa. And we're all very, very excited, all of us together, to share with you our commitments to the Prepare Call to Action. And I personally have the distinct pleasure of starting us off by sharing what BCG's commitment has been to the Prepare Call to Action. It is, I would say, it is not a surprise or news to any of us here in the audience that climate risks are intensifying, the consequences are no longer theoretical, but they are actually real and they're happening now. And that's the story of adaptation. Investment in adaptation is lagging far behind what is needed. And this is actually delaying the implementation of actions and the scaling of solutions that we know need to be done to protect the most vulnerable in society and around the world. We know that public and official sources of capital are finite and they can only go so far. So the private sector has to step up. And the private sector has to step up not only because we want them to and the money is there, but because it is an imperative and it is also an opportunity. And that's what our report sort of talks through. Many of the businesses here, not in this room, but out there, are not yet convinced of the economic benefit of investing in adaptation and resilience. And if they are convinced, they don't know about the pathways to take it forward. So our commitment from BCG to this report, to prepare, has been to demystify that business case, to think through all the challenges that companies are facing, and to think through how those challenges can be overcome by investing in adaptation and resilience. We painstakingly went through thousands of transactions, looked at hundreds of companies and the case studies that those companies are doing, and then brought those insights into how do you do adaptation resilience? What investments do you do? And what is the business case for it? We found that the business case is not only there, it is compelling. Our hope is that the flagship report that we launched today, and some of you will see, shows how companies and financiers will invest in ways that benefit the bottom line and also contributes to the benefit of people and planet. We looked at things like business cost ratios when you are thinking about protecting assets, protecting supply chains, protecting operations. And Secretary Kerry mentioned that those business cost ratios can range from 2 to 15. So there is clearly an opportunity there to protect against the cost of inaction. We looked at companies and investments, and we found that investments reach up to not a median of 9 times equity in terms of returns. So our thesis is that resilient businesses contribute to a resilient world. So I hope you'll all take a look at the report. We'll be having another event at the Global Resilience Partnership Hub on Friday morning where we'll go into some of the details around this. So let me now turn to the distinguished panel we have here and ask you one question, each of you, which is, what is your commitment to prepare, and how have you thought about the business case for that commitment? Alan, let's start with you.
Okay, thank you, everybody, and thank you, USAID, for actually accepting our pledge. And it's great to be with such an eminent set of people. The names behind us on this screen are a really great set of people. Look, when we looked at Prepare's objectives and we saw what they were trying to do, they just aligned brilliantly with our own values, our own strategy. So the decision to actually commit to this pledge was actually really easy for ARUP, really easy for ARUP. We see that the pace of urbanization, the climate change initiatives going on, these are two of the biggest changes, biggest challenges to resilience in the world today. And ARUP is a group of over 20,000 people who are planners, designers, engineers, advisors in the built environment, dedicated to sustainable development. So we recognize these challenges, and we're committed to solving these challenges. And we also believe that this can only be done with the private sector. Private sector involvement needs to be there. Not just private sector money, private sector know-how needs to be there. And so we're committed to that. Our commitment is to use some of our digital tools to help, particularly in Africa and Asia. For example, and I'd like to mention a couple. For example, it's 10 years ago now since we launched our City Resilience Index. This is a piece of software that helps leaders of municipal authorities make decisions to make their cities more resilient. And it's been used in over 100 cities to date and is still continuing to be used. We've got another piece of software that called Terrain, which sounds really high-tech, right? It takes satellite images and it uses those satellite images with machine learning to look at cities and extrapolate the risk of those cities, how they're going to see flood water, how they can absorb flood water or not. And we've used it in cities like Cairo and Mumbai and other places already. And we dedicate to use those in future. So for us, this was an easy decision. We recognize we're only one firm, but we're committed to the challenge that's out there. We know it's a global challenge, so we need to be part of teams like this, like Prepare, and we're delighted to do that. So we can only do that if we shape a better world, which is what we want to do, which is what everybody wants to do, I believe. And therefore, we can only do that if we're together doing that. So I look forward to working with you.
Thanks, Justina.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. It's an honor to be here today. Similar to what you shared, it was very easy for us to be a part of Prepare. It aligns very much with our mission at IBM. I lead our corporate social responsibility work, and a lot of the efforts that we do globally, it's focused on how do we support those vulnerable communities, especially those that are most impacted by environmental threats and climate change. I think we had a recent report, IPCC, that said 3.3 billion people are going to be impacted by climate change, and they all are in vulnerable communities. So we have a number of efforts that support the Prepare commitment. One is our IBM Sustainability Accelerator, where we are committing $10 million over the next 2 years, working in partnership with nonprofit organizations and governments to use our data, our technology, and our expertise to provide support to those vulnerable communities in Brazil, India, Australia, and in the MENA region, Middle East, North Africa. We are providing access to our technology, including our satellite data. We have a great partnership with NASA and our environmental intelligence suite, where we can help those nonprofit organizations and governments iterate or create new solutions that can actually help provide access to clean water, reduce water pollution, and also support water scarcity and water ecosystems in those most needed areas in those countries. So we're very excited to be a part of the Prepare commitment. In addition to that, we recently launched a number of learning pathways on our program IBM Skills Build, which provides access to training and micro-credentials that provide training and support, mentorship, and access to job opportunities for vulnerable communities. And those training pathways include access to sustainability training, AI, cybersecurity, and other technologies. And we know that training supports those communities that need to be moved into newer and better paying jobs, especially those that are in the sustainability field. So thank you for being a part of this. We're very excited to support Prepare, and we'll continue to drive these efforts in those vulnerable communities.
Thanks, Justina. Liz.
Thank you. And again, I'll repeat what everyone said. Thank you so much for including Aon and myself at this panel today. We're thrilled to be part of this effort. And Aon, we really, as an insurance broker, we believe climate resilience is absolutely core to who we are and to why we're working with our clients. We help companies all over the world get access to risk capital to help them recover after natural catastrophes, cause losses and destruction. one of the significant reports that we put out every year is we track losses globally across every country, every peril around the world. And in 2023, there was $313 billion of economic loss caused by natural catastrophes. Only 58% of those losses are covered by insurance. There's a really significant protection gap, especially in parts of the world where access to funding after extreme events is so critical to help people and communities get back on their feet and rebuild. One of the barriers and the reasons why insurance is so difficult to penetrate in all of these areas is access to data, access to reliable information about the risks that exist in a community that is credible enough to create a risk transfer agreement and bring risk capital into an area. And so at COP, we're thrilled to announce a partnership with the African Development Bank and Amini, a crop yield data company driven by AI technology, to bring crop insurance capacity into Africa. This partnership will allow farmers in Africa to get access to crop insurance through high credible, high detail, and reliable climate data. Only 3% of the farmers in Africa have access to crop insurance today, leaving them extremely exposed to losses from flooding, drought, pest infestation. Through our partnership, we're designing a multi-peril parametric product that will be available to small farms in order to give them access to coverage and payouts immediately after events occur. In addition to that, we're pairing this high quality crop data with Aon's proprietary climate risk data and deep understanding of how events unfold so that farmers will actually get access to information, early warning data around how events may impact them, what pest infestations might be coming their way so they can prepare and be more resilient. Our partnership will also enable these farmers to move beyond their day-to-day fear of loss and start to be able to think about how do they get access to regenerative farming goods and access to data so they can invest in those more resilient farming practices. So we're helping with resilience, we're helping with their recovery, and we're enabling them to make investments on the mitigation side as well. So thank you for having us, and we're really excited to announce this partnership.
Thank you. Andrew. Go ahead, Andrew.
Our offer is to shift market psychology so that we stop thinking of adaptation just as a cost and we think of it as an amazing opportunity for investment. If we are to adapt, we are going to need hundreds of billions of dollars, driving down cost curves, innovating, bringing new products onto the market. But we have tended to just not have the same focus on adaptation investment as we have on mitigation investment. 4 years ago, the Global Commission on Adaptation, led by Bill Gates, Kristalina Georgieva, and Ban Ki-moon, came out with numbers that showed that invested well, $1 in adaptation would lead to $4 of gain. But we simply haven't got the private sector yet to act as if that is true. And what I think you're trying to do, Administrator Power, and what John Kerry was saying is so important. And the Prepare initiative is really brilliant. And we are all in. So a group of Bezos Earth Fund, Climate Works, the Lightsmith Group, and MSCI Sustainability Institute, together with a number of banks and investors, are going over the coming months to issue an investment framework for climate resilient solutions as a thematic growth area. We're going to quantify the size and scope of relevant technologies and subsectors. We're going to outline how investors and investment managers can engage in this. And as a result of this, investment in technologies for adaptation are going to be sexy and red hot, just like they are for renewable energy, electric vehicles, and green hydrogen.
Thank you, Andy. So I hope you all will be very excited as I am about everything all my co-panelists have said today about what we're going to be doing collectively and individually on the Prepare agenda and on the Climate Adaptation and Resilience agenda. So now we're going to do something fun. We're going to go into a lightning round where we're going to invite our partners from the floor to make their interventions, to share your commitments to the Prepare call to action. And to do that, let's start with you, Elizabeth, and walk down the line. Please stand up, turn around, introduce yourself, and share your commitment.
Thank you so much. We're so honored to be here. So I'm Elizabeth Pethio with Miyamoto International. And at our core, we all believe that climate resilience is about lives and livelihoods. One of the areas that tends not to get a lot of attention in the climate resilience space is that of resilient housing and housing the communities that are around. 70% of our cities are composed of housing. We don't have enough information, enough ready technologies, local knowledge, international knowledge to be able to come with good solutions. Miyamoto International is a leader in climate and disaster resilient infrastructure. We're an engineering company with a humanitarian focus, and we are deeply, deeply committed to this. Our commitment is to spearhead a coalition of architecture, engineering, construction, and planning actors, international and in the U.S., to really tackle this issue and put it back on the agenda. We are honored to be part of this group and be with you in responding to this really critical and important call to action. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, afternoon. My name is Justin Mundy. I wear a lot of different hats, but one of which is an advisor to David Howden. And the Howden Group is delighted, I know, to be part of Prepare. There are two things which I think we'd like to bring to everybody's attention this afternoon. The first is a recent initiative in order to try and accelerate the revision of loss and damage, particularly for the V20 countries, to find a way of providing insurance cover which would take out the risk of 90% of the V20 SIDS for a very minimal amount of money. For about $2 billion worth of cover could be provided for $20 million worth of premium. So we think we can get there. The second thing is that we are developing a climate action trust which is going to provide insurance cover for the most vulnerable countries. This is a charity which will look at providing as a concessional finance premium for vulnerable communities around the world in order to provide a bridge the $20 billion worth of humanitarian finance which is missing, and we anticipate that $2 billion worth of cover can be provided extremely quickly. So we're very proud to announce both the Loss and Damage Fund, but also the Climate Action Trust. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Austin Alexander. I lead sustainability and social impact for Xylem. We're a global water technology company that provides solutions to test, treat, move, and monitor water across the entire water cycle. Our mission is to provide solutions that address water challenges for scarcity of water, resilience of infrastructure, and most importantly, doing it in a more affordable way. While we've historically worked very closely with municipal partners around the world, we've invested recently and will continue to invest in our technology solutions for the industrial water sector or other corporates that need to invest in their water technology to make their operations more efficient around the world. Thank you for this opportunity.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Theodore Waterloo from Visa. We're very proud to be supporting the Biden administration's Prepare initiative. So Visa is a digital payments network. We connect millions of financial institutions and merchants and businesses and cardholders in 200 plus countries and territories around the world. And we see investment and partnership in climate adaptation and resilience as directly linked to both our corporate purpose and the foundation of our business strategy, which is uplifting people by being the best way to pay and be paid everywhere. So in response to the call to action, we are expanding our collaboration with Oxfam America to scale its Be Ready solution across Colombia, Kenya, the Philippines, and Puerto Rico, 4 countries and territories that are on the front lines of the climate crisis. So what are we doing? We are taking Visa data and using that to improve analytics and modeling to enable payouts, disbursements of humanitarian aid in response to disasters. So very importantly, we're able to do that in preparation for those. So that's really that analytic and analytic capability to get that aid in the hands of people before disaster strikes. You know, even a matter of days can make a substantial difference. So through that, getting that humanitarian aid securely, quickly, efficiently to the people, the businesses, the communities that need it. And really, you know, we see this as just a starting point. There are incredible opportunities to continue to innovate in money movement to ensure that all of these financial efforts that have been discussed are making a difference in communities as quickly and as efficiently as possible. So again, we're proud to be part of this, proud to support the Biden administration's effort here, and thank you.
Hi, my name is Chris Adama. I'm with Danone, and one of the many things that I get to do with Danone is lead our regenerative agriculture sustainability strategies with our farming supply chain. And if you don't know Danone, we make a lot of fresh milk, yogurt products, also dairy alternative products using soy, coconuts, almonds, amongst other things. We also do a number of baby food and infant formula. So we have a wide range of products across the world, and we are very excited to be a part of Prepare to expand our regenerative strategies across at least 12 other countries. That includes Africa, Asia, and Latin America. And some of the things that we will be doing with that regenerative strategy is obviously focusing on cropland practices, where we believe we can drive efficiencies, drive quality of crop, drive various yields as well. And then obviously with dairy, management of herds is incredibly important. So thinking about how those cows we can have fewer cows, more yields, through better genomics, better herd management, better nutrition going to those animals. So it's a very broad framework that we're taking to a number of our farmers upstream in our supply chain, and very excited to really be driving this for improving farmer livelihood, but also looking at water-stressed areas where that's going to be a key outcome as we move forward. So thank you for having me. Very excited to be a part of this.
Ray from Tomorrow.io. Right there.
Great. Thanks for having me. So I'm Ray from Tomorrow.io. We are a weather and climate intelligence company. And what we do is building weather satellites, putting them in space, building weather models using AI, and then providing the data to those who need it most. In this pledge, I want to talk about our work with farmers in Africa. We today work with over 1 million farmers in Kenya, smallholder farmers, providing them with personalized weather and climate intelligence, taking their weather information, taking their specific soil type, crop type, and telling them exactly what they need to do today and in the next coming days in order to be best prepared for the climate and the weather to come. We're very proud to be part of it, and through this pledge, we're aiming to scale this from 1 million to 100 million farmers by the end of this decade. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much, Ray. And thank you all of you for sharing with us your commitments. It's really exciting and astounding, actually, to see what's been achieved here and what will be achieved over the next few years. So there's a few companies who also joined the Prepare Call to Action, and I just want to mention who they were. They're not able to be with us, maybe sometimes because of the green zone issue, but sometimes because they're not able to travel. So Blue Marble is a company. It's a consortium of leading insurance organizations. They committed to support climate adaptation of underserved populations among commodity supply chains. Synoptic, a public benefit corporation, has committed to add 30 new developing countries to their weather data platforms. Jupiter Intelligence, as Administrator Power mentioned, they've committed to add data for 100 other emerging market and developing economies to their platform. And Milliman, a global risk management, benefits, and technology company has committed to advise on sustainable microinsurance and to increase the foundational actuarial capacity in developing countries. So as you all see, the Prepare Call to Action Coalition has grown significantly from 10 last year to 31 this year. The commitments you've seen made are across different sectors, different industries, different geographies, and different concepts. And so that makes it a very powerful collective across all of us together working towards addressing the issues of adaptation and resilience. So please join us all in this coalition. For those who are not members yet, we'd love to have this coalition grow and to be part of something that we can work together for a better tomorrow. Let me hand it back to Aparna.
Thank you. So this is a really big deal. And I just want to take a moment and have the audience pause a little bit. A few years ago, the question of how we can really ensure that adaptation finance is getting mobilized has been a huge question mark. And the fact that there are this many actors in this room and around beyond this room that are committed to bringing their private sector capital is a huge deal. So a huge round of applause for that. And I also just want to say that from the DFC perspective, I am really excited to ensure that we can have conversations with every single one of the actors here that have made these commitments to figure out how we can partner with you. If there are capital needs in emerging markets, please think of us. We are here to partner with you as we also think about how we can increase our own adaptation financing portfolio. So with that, I'm really pleased to introduce Ali Zaidi, the White House National Climate Advisor, to provide closing remarks. Thanks.
Thank you so much. So grateful to be with all of you here today. So often, I think, the conversation around resilience and adaptation and the conversation around the mitigation of greenhouse gas emissions take place in different rooms, as if they were not interrelated. I think our experience, increasingly, as the fury of a changing climate shows up in communities the world over, is that these two things are profoundly interrelated. We measure with such painstaking detail our greenhouse gas mitigation efforts. But then a wildfire burns through millions of acres and puts CO2 into the sky, profoundly devastating that already relentless math. We think so hard about moving food systems closer to where people live so that we're not burning unnecessary fossil fuels in the movement of goods. But then we watch, oftentimes idly, as droughts plague people, and we are called upon to respond in an emergency fashion, using even more fossil fuels to ship emergency supplies to meet people in need. We've gotten, in some rooms, much more sophisticated in the work of addressing industrial sector emissions, understanding that there is carbon embodied in cement and steel and asphalt and aluminum. Each of them would be a G20 country if they were measured on emissions alone. And yet, when the next storm hits and knocks down all of the buildings and we have to go through the task of building once more, we think of it as a resilience and adaptation conversation, not a conversation on greenhouse gas. I say this to you not because you need convincing, because you are here to answer the Biden administration's call to prepare, the call of this COP to level up our appreciation of the adaptation and resilience focus that we all collectively need to elevate. I say it because I think we need to make a more forceful case for why resilience and adaptation is so central to the work of climate. That's number one. Number two is how we go about this. In the United States, we're in the process of investing in a very significant, a generational fashion in the work of building our infrastructure. Our Office of Management and Budget just issued guidance for the first time, comprehensive in nature, of how we build that smart from the start. taking the best practices from around the world and integrating them into the build-out of infrastructure. But we don't just do that for ourselves. We do that with intentionality around trying to drive down both the core technology costs of more resilient infrastructure and also the balance of systems costs associated with deploying infrastructure that is more resilient in the face of the challenges that are becoming more ubiquitous. Here, I think we can all be partners in disseminating and making sure we make more commercial these practices, these technologies, and the balance of systems. Folks here on the panel have talked about some of those resilience and adaptation widgets, whether it's low-cost solar-powered irrigation or it's desal systems that return water to and replenish aquifers. How can we get better at not just paying by the pound, but reducing the cost to do resilience itself? That must be one of the focal points of our work together. And I think as a community of practice, and I hate to be the bad news bear here, as a community of practice, we have satisfied ourselves to date by measuring how many pounds of deployment of resilience we get in a given year. What we're not measuring is how much better are we doing at reducing the cost of something as simple as bolt and brace. So the next time hurricane winds blow through, the wind doesn't blow off. That's cost $4,000 or $5,000 for a single family home for as long as I can remember. Why are we not being relentless about knocking down those costs? In the same way we're relentless about knocking down the costs of solar PV or lithium-ion batteries. It's the same concept, and I think we have to get hard-headed about this. I was with the President just a few weeks ago as we launched in the United States the National Climate Assessment. We were looking at a screen like this backstage and looking through the data that help us pinpoint the vectors of risk. And his big push to all of us was to make sure that that level of granularity and detail was available not just in the U.S., but everywhere. That's why one of the things that we've been partnering with the interagency within the U.S. government is to export as much of that. And it's exciting to hear the partners here talk about building that data basis. But data is kind of useless if we don't do something with it. And I think my big challenge would be that for the corporate actors and for the philanthropic actors, it's the time to put real cash into the work of driving down the cost of these technologies, of translating an understanding of the vectors of risk into an understanding of where the lowest cost opportunities are to deploy resilience and adaptation interventions, and to migrate the work of resilience from the place of philanthropy and corporate sustainability and, trying to build good vibes at a climate conference to the hard-headed work of figuring out where the returns can come from, figuring out how we can align all the beneficiaries from a risk policy to pay the premium that is necessary to increase the coverage, because it's not just an underwriting gap, it's a premium gap, right? It's a premium gap. Even in the United States, after 80+% of coverage in the U.S., we've dropped down below 80% because premiums are rising. And it's because we think, your risk, you're on your own. Well, companies, I think, in this room recognize that their supply chains run through those risk elements that proliferate across the world. So I think that's our challenge. Grateful to the State Department, to USAID, to our 19 agencies that have led this initiative, to all the partners from the private sector and the philanthropic. But I think the gap between where we need to be and where we are right now is massive. I think the implications aren't just measured in resilience terms, they should be measured in GHG. And I think as the reckoning for corporate actors comes on scope 1 and 2 and 3, that is going to morph and evolve into a reckoning not on just risk management as it is today on resilience, but also in GHG terms as well. We've got to get greater focus on this. But now that I've done all the gloom and doom part, I think all of the progress that we've made should give us enough hope that if we keep at this sort of approach, we can go the distance. Very grateful. Thank you so much.